another area we talked earlier about the ways to well-being is a phenomenon we call CHIME. And CHIME again has the C is for connection, so keeping that connection, keeping this wide raft, a bit like having a balanced diet. So we all have friends that we return to who are good for, say, guidance in relation to financial decision making, or relationships, or health, or a whole range of things. So it's important that we have a series of different ports we can go to, and not just to the one portal for an oracle. And I know even if you do have an Alexa, it won't answer all of your questions necessarily the way you want them to answer them. So having a range of different viewpoints is really helpful there. So connection is really important. And then I suppose, particularly at a time like COVID, which is uncertain and is taking longer than we would have expected and understood, is hope. That hope is a really essential piece, that when we look into the future, we see things getting brighter, we see things getting better, we're able to accommodate things, we have a greater understanding. Hope is a really important part of all of our lives. And if that gets extinguished, I think it was Churchill said that the cruelest thing you can do to a person is remove hope. But hope is how we look into the future, how we imagine the future. And that doesn't mean that it has to be sunny all of the time. You can go blind looking on the bright side all the time. But it's a balanced picture, but it's a hopeful, optimistic viewpoint of the future. Then the next letter in CHIME is I for identity. And this is really important, that sometimes people find that different life roles come to define them in some way. When you're a child, you're expected to do childish things, or a teenager gives you a bit more latitude, or as a young parent, you're expected to be a bit more responsible. And indeed, as an older person, what does that conjure up as a role expectation? Does that mean you're going to be going out raving or falling in from Leeson Street at 4 a.m. in the morning? Probably not. So sometimes there's a societal expectation of, at this life stage, you should be doing X and you shouldn't be doing Y. I think people need to find their own identity that they're comfortable with, and be acknowledged and recognized for that. And that's what gives us color and texture in relationships. So it's important that you don't get defined by having arthritis or having diabetes. That's a facet of yourself, but it's not all of you. And then the last two letters in CHIME are M for meaning and meaningful. So it means that when we do things, we don't just do it out of a sense of routine or rinse and repeat, but we do it because it actually is value added, and it's something that has an emotional connection for us. It's not just, we don't eat our meals on the basis that we have to fuel ourselves. We want the sense of enjoyment, we love the texture, we like the social contact. Maybe if we're Italian, we like to chat about food all the time. But it's not just going through the motions, it's about going through the emotions associated with different activities, so that it's meaningful and it has a bit of depth. And then the final piece, and to reflect the word you used a moment ago, Bruce, is around empowerment, so that people make their own decisions, armed with best information they have. And we don't always make the best decisions, we don't always make the healthiest decisions, but they're our decisions and we live with the consequences of our decisions. So that sense of empowerment is really, really important. And sometimes as people grow older, or maybe develop a disability or a health issue, they can sometimes feel the loss of independence. I remember for my dad, driving with my dad was always a exciting stroke terrifying experience, but eventually he came to the realization that his reflexes weren't really fast enough to anticipate what's happening next. So surrendering his car keys was a really symbolic moment for him. It was the mature thing to do, the sensible thing to do, the thing he didn't want to do, but we were very patient, and it wasn't for the want of dropping hints, but eventually he came to the view, I'm not going to drive anymore. It's no longer safe to do that for anybody. And that was a momentous step for him, but he took it in his own time, at his own pace, and he was more comfortable with it than if we start hiding his car keys, for example. So it's important that the person's empowered to make their own decisions and is supported to do that.
For more information and resources, visit www.mentalhealthireland.ie.